Well, I'm going to start off with a quick question. What do you think of the shirt? The shirt's a bit wild, isn't it? Kind of hurts your eyes if you look at it for too long. But here's the thing, right? It doesn't really matter what you think about the shirt. I mean, we've got a few minutes together now. I'm going to share with you some great strategies. And I'm also going to be running a masterclass for these guys in the new year. And I hope you get a chance to come that's a bit longer. But once we part and go our separate ways, I'm never going to see you again. And unfortunately, in this digital world, I'm not even seeing you at all. So why would I worry what people think about my shirt? And yet that's what people do. They sit there and they worry about what other people think. And yet 99% of the people that we meet just pass on through and have zero impact. And when we worry, what we do is we dumb down. It makes us beige, vanilla, and boring, doesn't it? We all understand that. And where does it come from? Well, for me, I did have a difficult childhood. As Jonathan has just mentioned, as I was growing up, I was born in a town called Halifax in the north of England. There are 50,000 people live there, 2 surnames in the phone book. Think of it like a town of cousins. And as I was growing up, all I knew was violence, alcohol, and abuse. It was a very difficult time. So I never went to college, never went to university. My first job was working in a factory for $1.50 an hour. That's my life. The age of 20, I joined the fire service, and that was brilliant. But I couldn't study. So I kept failing my promotion exams. And then one day, I'm watching TV, and I see a guy memorize a pack of playing cards on TV. And I went out and bought his book, taught myself how to improve my memory. And 8 months later, I went to the World Memory Championships and came fourth. And my life just went boom overnight. So I started teaching in the fire service, started sharing what I know. And that's why talking about presentation skills is incredibly important to me. It's my passion. Why? Because I believe that every presentation has the chance to change the lives of every person who hears it on some kind of level. That's how powerful it is to be able to connect and to be able to present really well. But it took me a long time out. This is all back in the mid-90s when I did this memory stuff. 97, I went back to the World Championships, came third. 98, I broke a Guinness record for reciting pi. Do you remember pi? 3.14159 goes on forever. And I recited pi to 22,500 digits. Say what? 22,500 digits from memory. Incredible day. But you know the number one question I get asked? People always go, why? Why would you do that? Because I could. And I knew it would change my life forever. I left the fire service. I became a full-time speaker, 25 countries. Quarter of a century later, it is just still the number one thing I say. I've done pi to 22,500 digits. People say, what? I've been on the Oprah Winfrey show. 50 million people saw me on the biggest chat show ever. And I did write a number one best-selling book about my life, which is like dead weird. And it's just been this amazing roller coaster. Now, am I saying all this stuff to brag? Yes. Right? Of course. Modesty is for those people with no talent. But actually, the point I'm here to make is this. When I first started out, I wasn't born with the ability to, I wasn't born in an environment that was conducive to business or presenting or being successful or writing books. Of course, I worked my way up. I dragged myself through sheer force of character and determination. I got where I am today. And when it comes to presentation skills, it's the same thing. I wasn't a good speaker when I started. Eventually, I got to the point where I was good, but I went through, I tried different techniques, and it was just trial and a lot of error. And even when I've been speaking a couple of years, I can remember speaking at the Royal Armouries Museum in Leeds. And everybody filled in a feedback form. And it's the first time I've spoken in front of an audience of 200 people. And people that day gave me 3 out of 20. So I phone them up and I say, how do I become better? They go, do this, do that, don't do that, more of this, less of that. And I'm like, fine. And I did. And that's why I came to understand that being able to present really well, whether it's virtually like this, or whether it's face-to-face in front of an audience, is all about process. The number one thing that you need to be a really powerful and effective speaker in front of any audience every time you present, whether it's a Monday morning team meeting or whether it's 10,000 people in a stadium, is a flexible framework. With that flexible framework that gives you a process, then you adopt and adapt, and that's how you become successful. And what I'm going to do in the next few minutes is just share mine, broad outline, and then we're going to go into it in a lot more detail in the masterclass in a couple of months. And it's called the Presentation Palace. So imagine you're constructing a building. What's the first thing you do? You lay down the foundations, right? If you don't have great foundations, what happens? The house falls over, or it sinks, or whatever. Think of the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Beautiful building, bad foundations. Within the foundations, you've got things like eye contact. I'm speaking to you at through the camera. Every single person I see doing virtual speaking does this. They look at the screen. Hi, how are you doing today? And it's like, mate, I'm up here. Learn to present through the camera. It's an intimate one-to-one reductive experience. I'm talking to you. I don't know how many people are on this call. There could be 10, it could be 10,000, but it's not me talking to 10,000 people. I'm having 10,000 one-to-ones just with people like you. That's how to present. Don't be looking down, don't be looking up, all around it. Yeah, it's great. We've had a really bad year this year, and it's not been. That's how people talk when they're on camera. Speak to the camera. Then you've got pauses. Pauses are great. Create a real atmosphere. You've got all the things that make you beige, like ums and ahs. When I'm coaching people how to do this, 90% do ums and ahs every 6 seconds. 6 seconds they'll go, fantastic, da 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 da, da 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 da, and it's like, wow, there should be zero. Never ever should you have an or an R in your conversation. So make sure you've got good eye contact. Remove that, put in some pauses, inject a bit of humor. We know that people like to laugh. And that's all within the foundations element. So make sure you get those things really nailed down. And only one in 5 people do the basics of good body language, good eye contact, good delivery, bit of humor, few pauses, get rid of the M's and the R's. Number 2, what do? We put in the structure. That's building the walls, right? So the walls of your talk are the stories that make it float along. These are the things that really make it exciting. Stories are awesome. It was done, there was a research study done at Stanford University, one of the world's greatest educational establishments, by a guy called Chip Heath, big time author. And he did a research study. And what he discovered in his study was that only 5% of people can recall an individual statistic, but 63% can remember stories. Even for that reason alone, it's a good idea to use stories. Like I've used part of my story today. What I'm doing here, this is best practice. I have a really unusual start talking about the shirt. Hang on, what's all that about? Then I bring in then I start talking about my background, and it's like, oh, that's quite an interesting story. Now I'm giving you some information. So I'm giving you some statistics and data, but I'm giving you all within just a 10-minute presentation. Stories are fantastic. And when it comes to your finish, always make sure you finish your talk really well. Why? Because the start is what makes people pay attention. If you have a boring start, they disappear. You've got to be out of the blocks with your talk in the start like a greyhound with its feet on fire. Woo! Right. So you've got to be out quick. Say something polarizing, challenging, funny, something that unsettles the audience, something that gets them on side, but get their attention. Attention span has gone from there down to here. People just knock off their video and disappear, don't they? This is the challenge with doing it virtually. But even face to face, you still want to get people's attention. But the finish, that's the bit that people remember the most. You've only got 3 points you can make in any presentation. Make sure that you emphasize those in the last 60 seconds because that's the only bit that they really remember. So we've got the foundations, you've got the structure. Next bit is protection, the roof. I live in Yorkshire. Problem with Yorkshire is it's either raining or it's getting ready to rain. One or the other, right? And today it's sunny. It's really nice. It's great outside. But the point I'm going to make is that what you've got to do is sometimes it's raining and things happen, right? So you put the roof on a house to protect it. It's the same when you are presenting. Things happen. I was at a presentation of the House of Commons with Sir Clive Woodward, who is the guy who took the England rugby union team to World Club glory in 2003. We were sat there, it was a meal, we sat and had the starter, the guy came out, the guy stood up, Clive Woodward, started speaking, they brought out the next course. So we sat there looking at a plate of food. What did he do? He carried on talking. He should have just sat down, told the kitchen to wait for the dessert, and then we could have had our meal, and it wouldn't have made any difference to the evening. These are the things that you've got to be prepared for. We prepare at home, we prepare in the office, but when we get to an event, either remote or face-to-face, it is a live event. Things happen. Like with Jonathan. Jonathan had a slight issue with the tech. We have a hiccup. I start a bit late. That's just the way of the world. Last one is decoration. You know, when they build an estate of houses, they all look the same. They've got the same foundation, same kind of structure, same roof. But now people go in and what do? They decorate it. They make it look nice to make it personal. And those are the things that take from good to great or great to bloody awesome. The things where you learn to film yourself. I've been working with an amazing chief exec called Martin Thatcher, and he spoke at the House of Commons to about 300 lords and MPs. I prepared him for his talk and I filmed him. And then afterwards we had a look at the film. And what we found is that Martin had this kind of clucking noise, but it only picked it up when he had a handheld mic. So we filmed him, realized that happened. Nowadays he just uses a microphone on his lapel. Small things, big difference that make you a proper presentation rock star. So that is my overall process. And I'm going to be going into it in a lot more detail. But when you come to putting a presentation together, just think of it like constructing a building. Put down the foundations, things like putting a bit of humor, how you start, how you do eye contact, body language, etc. Those are the basics. Then you put in the structure, great start, great finish, put in some stories. Then you protect it by understanding about how to use tested technology. Then the last one is do things like film yourself. That is decorating it. That is when it turns you into a proper rock star. And that's what I'm sharing today. Although I do believe that Jonathan may have one or two questions.
David, absolutely I do. What fun. It's always great to see you. And I must say, I do love your stories and your how you present and using memory as well. I really appreciate you coming on. You were supposed to join me in London today, but you decided, I think your client decided that he didn't need a one-on-one. How has your business changed? How has it transformed in the past year? Because you're obviously having to do these coaching sessions all the time virtually. Has it impacted your business or not?
Well, obviously up until March, we were all doing face-to-face. And I think the thing that's changed has been the dynamic as you present it. When we first started doing this back in March, and I started doing a lot of virtual speaking, a lot of virtual coaching, I couldn't quite work out where the dynamic was. People felt that there was not just a physical gap, but a metaphorical gap. I think now people are so used to it, so hardwired, that they find it a lot easier. So people are piling back in. In terms of work, I'm as busy as I've ever been, but of course, more efficient. Because I'm not getting in the car, plane, train, flying here, there and everywhere. I have done talks this year in, I think, 50 countries during lockdown. South Korea, working with clients in Luxembourg. I mean, just as you can imagine, I've just said 50 countries. If I'd have had to get on a plane and go to all 50 countries, I'd have been absolutely cream crackered. So it's been good for that. The other thing as well, the other thing is that I think that it's become a first choice option. A year ago, people would not have put this down as a first choice option. They would have just said it's not good enough. This is not enough. I want you in the room talking to me, talking to my team. And yet now we're understanding that because we're all used to doing it, we're actually able to do it pretty well. And therefore clients are coming forward and they're not even suggesting face to face, although we still have COVID issues, but they're going, no, let's do it like this because it helps everybody.
Yeah, and I must say it works really, really well, David, in this sort of educational environment, doing it like this. So, well done for transitioning to this so quickly. I listen to your podcast, and I always get a smile listening to your podcast. But you were telling on a recent podcast your move into coaching, being a fitness trainer. Just give us a bit of background on that, speaking to your wife and everything else. How did that come about?
Well, 10 years ago, I was 20 stone, which is 280 pounds. It's like 135 kilos, 125 kilos, 130 kilos. And the challenge, I lost weight, but it was slash and burn. So I slashed my calories, just dropped my calories, and I burnt more calories. So I dropped my food and increased my exercise. And it just didn't get me where I needed to be. And then what I did was I applied the same, and then what happened was 10 years ago, I lost a lot of weight, 80 pounds in 5 months, which is like in our money is 5 stone. It's like 33 kilos. So I got rid of the weight and I looked great. But then I put 60% back on because I didn't have a proper process. You and I understand this. You're part of groups where people just understand the concept of process. And therefore, when it came to 3 years ago, I decided to enter a bodybuilding competition. And so I got myself a coach. And he taught me all the things I didn't know about how to systemize weight loss and weight maintenance and building strength. Bearing in mind, I'm 52. I'm not a kid. And so once I did that, I started just put up some pictures on social media. And of course, all the guys are like, holy shit, that's amazing. And I was like, no, it's just diet and exercise. There's no drugs. There's no pixie potions. There's no surgery. It's just diet and exercise. And they went, really? And I went, yeah, I just get up at 5 in the morning and exercise. Anyway, one client came forward and just said, can you help me do it? I said, yes. I started working with him.
That's brilliant. Yeah, I love it. Why not? Just go for it. Just go for it.
100% every day.
Yeah, absolutely. So I suppose your argument would be that anybody can improve their presentational skills.
This is how I phrase it, and I'm not using semantics. I genuinely mean this. Everybody can become powerful and effective. Powerful is being able to connect with your audience. Effective is getting your message across. Everybody can do that, Jonathan. Everybody. I'm not here to make people a Barack Obama. And my job is, if I ever coach people, what I do is I say to them, I'm going to make you the best version of you that you can be in front of any audience. And actually, everybody can improve hugely. Because once you start using a good structure, you get a good start, you get the stories in, you get a nice balance through your talk, you minimize the number of slides you use, etc. Then the impact you have just goes up by a country mile. And then you become powerful. You really do connect with your audience, but you're able to get your message across. And everybody can do that. In all the time I've been doing this now, presentation skills coaching, which is 10 years, thousands of people and hundreds of chief execs and MDs, there's nobody who's not had a significant improvement.
Well, and of course, we're all learning about this new tech as well, where to look. It's all a bit difficult when I'm looking at the camera there, but I see you over here. So, it's practice, isn't it? Now tell me, how many packs of playing cards, did you memorize?
100 packs, 5,200 cards. It took me 5 days, 65 hours over 5 days. And so it took me 51 hours to learn them, 14 hours to recite them. And out of 5,200 cards, I got just 12 cards wrong. And that became a world record. So I hold the world record for that still.
And when was that?
15 years ago.
And no one's beaten it since then?
No. The Guinness record that I talked about in the presentation, That was gone in about 6 years. I did that in 98. 2004, a guy came along and beat it, and about 6 or 7 other people now have done more than me, which is great. I love it because every time it comes up, I get a bit of PR, and it's fine. I had my moment, and it's gone. I mean, I was a memory guy, and that's what I did, and that got me into this amazing life called speaking. But now, speaker coaching is what really lights my fire, because improving memory is a great tool. We would all admit to that. But helping people stand, present, nail a really significant talk, it's a rush. It's incredible. And to be able to do that for other people is what I'll live for.
What fun, what fun. David, listen, thank you so much for joining us. We're not allowed to have you on for any longer because this is only supposed to be a teaser. We put this as a teaser, so everybody will go to your masterclass that follows in the new year.
Well, we're going to it in detail there, Jonathan. They've had it well. They know what it's about. I can help everybody. Get yourself signed up. We're going to have a great time.
Fantastic. David, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank